Hello everybody. Can you believe it? Here we are heading off week 4. Man, this was the speed up process, wasn't it? So we're going to talk a little bit about attributions, and I want to kind of tie this to Fritz Heider, since he's kind of literally the guy who wrote the book. So let's take a look here at Fritz Heider. He was Austrian-born psychologist, emerging out of the Gestalt movement. And the Gestalt psychology, if you don't remember from Psycho 1100, it's not an area of psychology that's discussed much anymore. And the big question for the Gestalt psychologists, because they were really into perception, was given all our different sensory apparatus, that is our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, etc., why do we then perceive, we sense all these things separately, and we process all these things separately in separate areas of the brain? When it comes to perception, how does it all get tied together? Hello, Penelope. And that was the big question, because our senses present us a world that's in a complete package, and that's the Gestalt, that's the whole, right? So how does the brain take all of these disparate processes, these sensory organs, and each with their own perceptual system, and then tie it together? So what's important then is the Gestalt, and we see from therapeutic interventions that some psychologists then took this as your Gestalt is your life space, it's your psychological reality in which you operate. All right, so he emerged out of the Gestalt movement. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1930, which is a little earlier than a lot of German or Austrian psychologists did. He was eventually recruited to the University of Kansas in 1948, and this is where this Kansas Symposium becomes kind of the center of attributional research and theorizing. He wrote The Psychology of Interpersonal Relationships, which is an amazing book, in 1958. And what we're talking about here is the ability to understand the causes of someone's behavior, right? So two significant contributions of Heider: attribution theory and balance theory. So we're gonna talk about both, but we're gonna start with attribution theory. And basically, attributional theory is what caused them to behave the way they did. And if we do this successfully, if we attribute the cause of someone's behavior successfully, if we truly understand why they did what they did, we're able to then craft a plausible explanation for their behavior. It turns out that we may be able to predict their behavior in the future. More on that, because that's a little less secure an idea. And then if we're able to predict, if we're able to explain, then we may in fact be able to control another's behavior through engineering an environment that causes them to respond in that predictable manner. So we do this by making causal explanations. So if you get hung up on the word attribution, what the hell is attribution? It's creating a causal explanation for observed behavior. And that can be our own behavior, it can be somebody else's behavior. So causal explanations can be dispositional. There's really two forms of causal explanations that Heider introduced us to. The dispositional is, hey, they did that because that's the way they are. So it often relies on traits, right, and or stereotypes. So this is automatic. This is the first attributional process that kicks in, will generally lead to dispositional explanations. It takes less effort. It's really easy to say, oh, man, greedy Gus didn't loan me any money because he's freaking greedy, and greedy people don't loan money. And notice there's little more explanation, and the power of this is, what's the probability of greedy Gus giving me money for anything in the future? Super low. So this dispositional explanation that's automatic takes less effort. It can apply across a wide variety of situations, and that's the value in a dispositional explanation. If someone's a liar, then are you going to trust them? If you ask them a question, do you trust them? No, they're a liar. So odds are they're going to lie to you. And notice how that makes it easier to predict our world. But the problem is the dispositional explanation isn't always the best. There's times when the situational explanation would be superior. So dispositional explanations may result in errors. And as I said a little earlier, they're very similar to stereotypes. Now let's look at causal explanations then, as situational. These are not likely automatic. They're more effortful. We often need more information. Notice we can't look at an actor and say, oh, they did that because that's the way they are. No, what we have to do is look at the actor and then past the actor and look at the situation in which they're embedded and begin to surmise how that situation might affect their behavior. So we need more information to make the situational explanation. It takes more time to make the situational explanation. And it's often the result of when we realize that we've made a mistaken attribution, right? We've picked the wrong cause for behavior that was dispositional, that we say, oh shit, I really need to think in terms of the broader picture, the situational influences that we're under. So often situational explanations represent a correction to an initial dispositional explanation. Sometimes, not always, right? And they can be more accurate because they take the situation into account. And when we're really nuanced, we do it kind of in the Lewinian fashion, right? And that is behavior is a function of the person in the environment. That is the dispositional and situational explanation, or the person and environment in Lewin's terminology. These attributions are likely to be more complex. They allow for this interaction. And that's about it for attributions. I know your book covers it well, but I wanted to kind of hone in on this. I'm a big fan of Heider. I love the book, Interpersonal Relations. If you're looking for something to read of a psychological nature, I thoroughly recommend it.
And now for something completely different.
And different it is. Let's talk a little bit about balance theory. You can see that Heider did focus on relationships, so you can imagine attribution in relationships, where we're going to go with these lecturettes in the future. When he talks balance theory, he says that people prefer relationships that are psychologically balanced. And what exactly does that mean? Well, he kind of illustrated it with these triangles, and basically for a relationship to be in balance, there's three components that have to be considered. That is, if you're in a relationship, there's you, and I'm heterosexual, so if I'm in a romantic relationship, it's likely to be with a her, right? And growing up, I loved Westerns. My mom was a casting director in Hollywood. She cast the Western Gunsmoke, among others, but that was probably the most famous that she cast for years and years and years, and I grew up loving Westerns. So let's see how this works out. Now, see, the plus sign here indicates me and my relationship to her is positive, that I love her and I love Westerns. Now, for this relationship to be in balance, what do you think has to occur in relation to her and Westerns? Well, if she does not like Westerns, then Heider suggests that the relationship is out of balance. And there's an easy mathematical process here. Really sillily easily, right? So what do we take here is we take +1 times +1 times -1, and you got the math? You done? Got your calculators out? Yeah, I bet you could do it in your head. What we end up is with a -1, and this indicates that the relationship is out of balance. And this implies something has to change, right? If this is serious enough. Now, I'm being funny about Westerns, but let's say that's children or religious upbringing or something that could be serious in a relationship, then something's got to change. Either I have to change my relationship to Westerns in this example, in that maybe I should like them a little bit less, or she needs to learn to love Westerns, right? And that would bring it in balance. Or, and this is the worst of the possibility, but life is life, sometimes then we say, well, then maybe my liking for her isn't appropriate, that we're not really compatible. So then if we take an example of a relationship that's in balance, again, we'll do the me, her, and this time, let's put something different out there. Let's have some fun stereotyping maybe. This will be a real stereotypic example based on gender stereotypes, right? And she likes Sex and the City reruns. Remember that show? Maybe you never saw it, with your Sarah Jessica Parker, among others, right? So I love her, right? And then she loves Sex and the City reruns, and I'm smart enough to have bought the full set for her one Christmas, right? And then, see, then I learned to love Sex and the City as well, and that brings the relationship in balance. So it's not a tremendously complex idea, but we can see where relationships go out of balance, they're harder to maintain. So all else being equal. And really, that's about what we have then for Fritz Heider in this little lecturette. And let's say goodbye to Los Angeles International Airport. And there is the sun finally going down. Beautiful orange-red smoggy sunset in Los Angeles. So stay tuned. 4.2 on the horizon. Bye.